So I have another sort of perspective to be able to see yourself, see others, and maybe contextualize a little bit more about what the current platform or arena is around spiritual psychosis. Now, I'm having more and more trouble with linear language, with things that are put in boxes and with labels, because that's sort of a very third dimensional view on pretty much everything, because nothing is ever one thing, which is exactly what we're going to talk about today. So New Age spirituality, spiritual psychosis, mental health, mental illness, all of those topics are very, very loud right now as the world begins to understand itself individually and collectively more and more deeply than ever before. As I say, I'm having a little bit of trouble with all the boxes and all the labels, but again, we got to do what we can do with the human language and its limitations. So I recently had the opportunity to sort of contextualize the possibilities of where these psychoses come from the spiritual perspective. And that's what I wanted to offer you today. The process of ascension is not that you are ever going to kill the ego or get rid of the ego. What we are doing is we are purifying and cleansing the ego of all of its attachments to wounds, traumas, programming, form of protection, through its lens of keeping track and all of the memories that the ego holds on to in order to give context to your reality in ways that it can keep you safe. So it compartmentalizes. It says, if you didn't get picked for the baseball team when you were 8 and that really hurt your feelings, it's going to hold on to that memory and then project it forward into your reality in every other similar type of situation where you could be not accepted, not valued, not included. Those are the wounds around wounds and traumas around inclusivity. Nope, not that word either. Inclusivity, belonging, abandonment, things like that. So that is the way that the operating system that is the ego has operated in the past. Now, the word spiritual psychosis, or the label or the box that many are being put into, again, it's an objective word. It is from a third dimensional unawakened state. All of us that are awake and aware are all in some kind of spiritual psychosis. And yet those of us that are awake and aware and can look back into the 3D unawakened reality, the one that we came from, we were in some kind of a psychosis when we were in the 3D because we were highly pretending to be something that we were clearly not. So the whole thing is very fluid, and I encourage you, if you are watching this or you have had these conversations with others, to really work on neuroplasticity, the ability for you to be able to hold that multiple things can be true all at the same time, multiple realities are playing out all at the same time, that nothing is ever wrong, everything is real, everything is not real, everything is true, and most things are a lie, all at the same time. This is where I see more mainstream, new age spiritual psychosis being the issue that it is today. The ego is a child. The ego was created by your 5-year-old self, approximately, as the character that was going to navigate reality on its behalf. So no matter how old the person is or how adulty they are, the ego is still a child. The ego is immature. What we're doing as a part of this process is, as I say, we're purifying everything that the ego is holding on to so that the ego can become mature as a tool for the spiritual awake and aware being to use, just as a tool. You're going to keep your personality in a lot of different ways, and yet a lot of it will change as you move through the higher states of consciousness and embodiment. What happens though is for some people, they become aware of information that is more esoteric, more metaphysical, more spiritual, at a level where the maturation of their ego isn't quite able to fully integrate it as knowledge, as embodied wisdom. Because the synapses that are in the brain and how the brain is wired from the 3D experience is very limited. Everything is very linear from that perspective. It is either or, but never both. It is one thing or the other. It is compartmentalized. It is labeled. If this is true, then this must not be true. That is the way that the linear mind works from sort of the lower states of consciousness. And I don't mean lower in like a bad way. We've all been there. We're all working our way through all of these boxes. But from the perspective of the ego, when an immature ego, again, regardless of how old the person is, comes into information that is really only meant for a more mature ego and a being that has moved through new neural wiring and higher vibratory frequencies within the body to be able to hold multiple truths at the same time and see things from a more multi-dimensional space. That's actually a maturation of the ego, and it is indicative of the new neural synapses that are being built in the brain as the brain is being rewired, part of the ascension process. So where people get stuck is their immature ego latches on to, this is the goal, this is what's true, and then just holds on to it like nothing else could be possibly true. So you have then people that are saying things like, it needs to only be love and light and nothing else, but everything else does exist, and we have to hold the container in awareness that all exists. It's reality isn't real. Oh, well, then if none of this is real, that can trigger all kinds of things within the human being based on whatever their perception of reality has been. But it is also sort of a breeding ground for sort of a psychosis of nothing is really real, so nothing matters. None of this is real, therefore I can behave in certain ways or treat people in certain ways. It can really create sort of a serious fragmentation that makes it very difficult for the human to be able to navigate reality and definitely to navigate their spiritual awakening process. So where this happens, it happens in the New Age spiritual communities, and it can happen when someone goes through their awakening and it's a little bit too fast. You do hear stories about people that have had sort of a spontaneous Kundalini awakening, and that creates some kind of a psychic break for a temporary amount of time. It can be people that are like addicted to going down all the rabbit holes and learning all of the information, but then what do they do with the information? And often this seeking more information and the thirst and the hunger to know more stuff is really highly rooted in an inner child trauma or wound of feeling unsafe. So the ego thinks upon awakening, okay, well, all I have to do is learn everything there is that I need to learn in order for me to keep my humans safe. When in actuality, you're just feeding the ego more and more information that it is not able to maturely handle or process. The core wound behind all of that rabbit holing is that the work that's being asked to be done is that you work through the inner child stuff, you work through the root chakra, you heal your nervous system, you learn how to be and feel safe in your body as the new version of you that you have become on the other side of your awakening. So That's not to say that being a seeker isn't a valid part of the ascension and awakening journey, because there are activations that bring you into remembrance, that help you work on your neuroplasticity, that are found in being a seeker. But you also have to be aware and self-aware enough to know when it's time to start pumping the brakes. When you start to have ideas and ideations that are spiritually distorted because the ego has taken on information that it's not mature enough yet to handle. So it's a really, really broad topic. It can play out in so many different ways. It's just something for you to be aware of. And I'm thinking that using the lens of how mature is the ego, either your own ego or the ego of the person that you may be watching that may be struggling or going through something like this, that would be a really good lens and the more appropriate language to use, rather than throwing around labels that call people mentally ill or in a psychosis and sort of all of the more negative connotations, because there are no accidents. What you scripted for yourself in the how you're going to awaken and how quickly you're going to come into awareness of certain pieces of information is divine. But at the core of the core, you are here on a walk of mastery. So it may be that your path blew you wide open, but the bottom line is still always going to be, or the ask is always still going to be from the higher self, can you ground that in? Can you get back into your body? Can you walk the path of mastery where you allow this information to be embodied within you at a rate that you can manage and stay grounded and look after your body, look after yourself, practice self-care, bring everything that you've opened up into and still bring that into embodied wisdom rather than being very knowledge heavy or energetically scrambled. This can also happen. It looks similar to a Kundalini awakening, and in actuality, it's quite often with people that have had substance abuses, like recreational drugs or even pharmaceutical drugs for that matter, where their auric field is really torn and tattered, and they have spent a lot of time sort of energetically traveling in and out of this reality or in and out of this now, is that you end up with, as I say, sort of like a really torn and tattered field. That means that you have had experiences, real or illusionary, outside of the now, outside of your normal human perception of reality, and now it's all scrambled. Some of it is spiritual truth, some of it is illusion, some of it is drug-induced, and now energetically you're just a scrambled up mess. And we're calling that either a spiritual awakening, a Kundalini awakening, or we are dipping our toe into various forms of what could be disassociation or psychosis. That can also happen as well. And again, there's no judgment to it. There is no wrong. There are no accidents. There is no I never should have done that. Every part of this is divine because it is the level of mastery, the level of journey that your soul wanted to take. And typically on the other side of this will be your offering to society, in that you have become the master of having a ripped and torn auric field due to pharmaceutical and recreational drugs that opened you up to too many things too fast. Like whatever it is that has been your journey is always going to have the flip side to the coin, where that will be a part of your mastery and thus the offering that you offer society. So just be aware of all the labels and the boxes that we are putting people in. Everything truly is on target for the soul journey that they came to have. Do some of these people need a little more guidance and support, getting themselves back standing up on their own 2 feet so that they can walk the mastery path? 100%. But labeling and judging and pointing fingers at people and putting labels and names and boxes around them, that's not helpful. The easiest, I feel, most neutral and helpful way to look at this is, how mature is the ego? What information is the ego being fed, and is the ego integrating it and allowing it to be integrative and digestible? Or is the ego holding on to a lot of either ors, labels, boxes in a more 3D sense, showing that it's not mature enough for some of the information that the person is coming across? So we're in a whole new territory here, folks. Those of you that understood this video that might be going through this and you do need a little bit more guidance and help getting yourself upright, please reach out to me or someone else that you trust. If you are observing this in the collective through social media, through friends, family, or spiritual community, please just be gentle. There's nothing wrong. No one is actually off their target. They're going to find their way back. It's just all based on how mature the ego is and where they're at as far as the neuroplasticity and the new neural synapses that are being built within the brain that is a part of the frequency shifts that the body is going through. So I hope this helps you. Share this with someone that you feel may need to hear this message. Until next time, bye for now.